David Osborne, attorney extraordinaire.
Did the warrant specify that they could take surveillance equipment?
Honestly, I almost think the search warrant, some of it reads like a bad part of 50 Shades of Grey. Look at that suit. Does this look like a man who thinks that everybody's going to assume that everything he's saying is fact? I'm going to call my wife and tell her to be safe. Is that scary? Fuck yeah.
Which one did you think was going to be your biggest challenge?
The hard P.
Had the police thinking that Joe was a narcotics trafficker and involved in kidnapping? But as far as her allegations that there were women in cages in the basement and defecating or going to the bathroom in buckets.
That all went into the dungeon part of it. One's marijuana, one's sex trafficking.
Any kidnapping victims inside my CD.
I don't know who read the warrant.
Wop, wop, that's some wet ass pussy.
David Osborne, attorney extraordinaire.
There he is, Afroman's portly attorney. The Mata's got a great interview with him. Let's watch.
How are you, my friend?
Oh, I can't complain.
Tell us about your career. When did you become a lawyer? What did you do before that?
Graduated high school. Went down to Kentucky to a small college. Met my wife. Got married. Got my 2 degrees down there. Went to the University of Georgia. Got my PhD in chemistry.
That's interesting. I had no idea he had a PhD in chemistry.
Found out that I was overqualified to teach, scared to death to go into industry. One of our local attorneys, me and him made a bet, which is he writes a letter of recommendation and they accept me, I go to law school. And I had to keep my word and go to law school.
What had the police thinking that Joe was a narcotics trafficker and involved in kidnapping?
Well, they had a confidential informant who gave them a lot of that information, and that was the basis of it. I know we went through some of that in the depositions, and so there's a lot of stuff contained in the depositions that sort of explains that.
The reason this entire case is a travesty is because the original search warrant should never have been approved by the judge, and we're going to find out exactly what was in that warrant and some of the allegations made by the confidential informant.
There had been a report of a person with a large amount of marijuana. Officers had come together, went there for what they call a knock and talk. Talked to this lady. I guess they confronted her. Did you have the marijuana? And she took them to it, or at least told them where it was. And they found a felony level amount of marijuana in her possession.
So the confidential informant is busted with a felony amount of marijuana, and then she just so happens to have information on Afroman, which she probably used to get out of her case. And here is the exact text from the warrant. She had over 2,000 grams of marijuana in her possession, and it had the label Afroman on it. And right at the end, she states that she was holding it for Afroman.
They had her go back to the station, did an interview, and the question becomes, where'd this come from? And it's my understanding she said something to the effect of, well, this came from Mr. Foreman. She also told him about women coming and going out of a dungeon.
And in the search warrant, it sets forth that the confidential informant stated that during the last 8 years, she was consistently observing large amounts of money and marijuana at Afroman's residence. She also stated that Afroman has a basement referred to as the dungeon, in which he, being Afroman, keeps women locked in, forcing them to urinate and defecate in a bucket as punishment for upsetting or disobeying him.
Being put in cages and stuff, and so they kind of put that together and got a search warrant. What was really interesting was the contradictions that you have, because there was one interview with Mr. Newland that the recording failed, so they went in, and Mr. Newland, while he's typing the search warrant, has 2 other deputies go in, Sergeant Estep and Sean Cooley, go in and re-interview her. And what they said was it was kind of interesting, because then she changes her story to them indicating that she has stole this stuff from Mr. Foreman. And as you read the deposition, you kind of see a picture of what happened with the confidential informant, and then you kind of read the warrant again, and you're like, wait a minute, that's what you'd be looking for, is consistency in the story.
Whenever you're basing a search warrant on a confidential informant, it is imperative that you vet the informant to make sure that they're telling the truth. Here, clearly the informant had a huge motive to lie. She was just busted with a massive amount of marijuana. And check out what was written in the document. The confidential informant stated that she has not been to Afroman's house for approximately 1 month due to Afroman releasing a video depicting him urinating on Tasha Chamberlain's head. Confidential informant indicated before that incident she would visit the residence on a daily basis and did so for approximately 8 years. Confidential informant number 1 further stated that she would observe the aforementioned activity at the residence every visit.
I know she has a prior criminal record, and so there was a lot of stuff. And Mr. Newland, in his deposition, went through a lot of detail about the CI packet and all the stuff they look at, because when they classify you as a CI, they actually have a whole packet. They look at your criminal record. So there's a lot of stuff they would have put together there that.
But as far as her allegations that there were women in cages in the basement and defecating or going to the bathroom in buckets.
That all went into the dungeon part of it.
And there was no basement. But yet they still keep looking for these hidden rooms that they should now know that their informant was full of shit, but they spend all that time trying to tear apart the walls, finding a hidden room that doesn't exist.
And check this out. Confidential informant number 1 indicated that Afroman has a large metal building behind the residence where he stores cars. She also stated that she and her husband built a fitness room, which clearly Joe doesn't use, in the building, which has a false wall. Confidential informant 1 stated Afroman uses the false wall room to store marijuana and money.
Well, I think the search warrant also said that the CI was claiming that she was there when secret compartments were built and stuff. Honestly, I almost think the search warrant, some of it reads like a bad part of 50 Shades of Grey. But
I mean, it sounds like a complete fiction. And then I just thought, she said there were women chained in a basement that doesn't exist, but they keep looking.
If you look at the deposition, I asked everybody, so what were you looking for? And it's like every person had something different they were looking for. One person says they're looking for a juvenile. One person says they're looking for narcotics.
Why does the warrant say narcotics? Well, I know narcotics.
Obviously.
But why kidnapping? Weed in my suit pocket.
One, sex trafficking. I mean,
any kidnapping victims inside my CD.
I don't know who read the warrant, but it is. Everybody should have been tailored to say, this is what the warrant says. This is what we're looking for.
And here's the list of items in the actual warrant. Items of evidence including but not limited to quantity of marijuana, marijuana derivatives, and all other drugs of abuse, drug paraphernalia, including scales, packaging, materials, and paraphernalia used for the sale and administration of said drugs, money obtained from the sales of illegal drugs, documentation regarding the sale of illegal drugs, as well as weapons used for the protection of the above. Notice the security cameras are not specified anywhere in there.
You don't really go in looking for sex trafficking and stuff unless it's in the warrant.
They were going to take video camera as evidence. Did the warrant specify that they could take surveillance equipment?
No, it did not. That was one of the big arguments is that, and which kind of got tossed out with the counterclaims, is they exceeded the warrant. Now, their claim is that, okay, we disconnect the security camera. If there was kidnapping victims, it'd be on there. Well, that makes sense if you take it as evidence.
I mean, if it's not in the warrant, why are you disconnecting it, claiming you're going to take it in the first place?
That became one of the questions. I don't think we ever really got a good answer in depositions on it.
Like, how did you guys have the relationship?
Well, I was actually the third attorney on the case. I did not start the case.
David was asked how he even became to represent Afroman, and he explained that there were several other attorneys that were on the case before he actually took over.
The case started with Bruce Rivers. I came on more because Joe was looking for someone local who knew everybody. I mean, even in depositions, you'll see when I talk to Mike Eastep, I say, you know me my whole life. Most of these officers I've known a long time, so I think he was looking for someone who knew them, knew exactly how they would operate, what was going on, and that was something that you didn't have with Mr. Rivers.
No matter how great of a trial attorney you are, there's a huge benefit if you know the judge, if you know the court system, and you know the local people around there. And that was a very smart move by Afroman to bring in this big boy ringer because he knew everyone in the situation.
Which one did you think was going to be your biggest challenge?
The hard P. That was the one where it's defamation per se.
He's referring to the allegations made against Officer Newland with regard to the little boys.
And it makes it hard. That was the one that scared me. You have defamation per se, which is something clearly on its face that would shock the senses. But the hard PI was because it was very plainly towards him. It was very plainly going to shock you. That was really where I focused a lot of my stuff. And
there are different types of defamation, but defamation per se is the most egregious one. And it's so egregious, the damages are automatically assumed in defamation per se cases. That doesn't mean you automatically win, but if you're able to prove that a statement is defamation per se, you automatically are assumed to have been damaged.
What worried me the most.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. Brian Newland is a flag.
You posted videos about Brian Newland doing hard drugs and snitching on his friend. Posted those based on rumors, didn't you?
It's a fact. William Newland is a convicted pedophile, and Brian Newland is his brother. He used to play with little toys. Now he plays with little boys. Detective Newland, Brian got away with that crime. Fired from the police, tried and convicted, registered sex offender. After I zeroed in on Brian, I asked about him. Come to find out, he's a large statutory rapist that has sex with all kind of underage girls. He buys them beers and gets them drunk and all kind. That's probably the reason he had to leave the Adams County Sheriff Department, because he beats up his wife and he messed with underage girls, and he had to get out of town and go get a job in Norfolk.
And what a beautiful response by Afroman. Remember, a statement, even if it's egregious, even if it qualifies as defamation per se, cannot be legally defamatory if it is true. And according to Afroman, it was.
The judge seemed to think some of this could be proved as a fact. Rap artist putting it in a song, doing it in such a satirical way.
My gate and door.
No reasonable person would take it as fact.
That was more in the jury instructions, where we were trying to put together jury instructions, and there actually was an instruction for exactly what is a fact, what is an opinion.
If it's a bona fide opinion, it cannot be defamatory.
And that's actually kind of like opinion was something that cannot be proven true or false. Carly B, WAP. I find it bad to say what WAP means.
Hey, as an Italian and a huge Carly B fan, I'm offended by that.
WAP, WAP.
That's some wet ass pussy.
It's a popular song. Nobody looks at Lil Wayne's song Pussy Monster and says there's a monster in that song. Everybody knows it's exaggeration.
He's never met my ex-wife.
Entertainment. Is he commenting on something? Sure. I formed an opinion. I imagine everybody here's formed an opinion. We know that they formed an opinion. People are allowed to have opinions. People are allowed to express them. Look at that suit. Does this look like a man who thinks that everybody's going to assume that everything he's saying is fact? He's like a comedian. He exaggerates.
And I said it before, Joe, on behalf of all comedians everywhere, especially those that use satire and deadpan, I appreciate you going through what you did. This was a tough fight, and we saw Joe at the end shedding a tear, because your entire life, all your emotions, your kids, your house being broken into, are all capsulized into one solid event. And thank goodness that every single claim made by these crybaby cops rendered Joe not liable. Now let's go listen to some Carly B to celebrate.
Wop, 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 wop. That's some wet ass pussy.